First of all, I'm going to start with how to enable EYFS 2021 flags. As well, I just want to introduce or talk about where these EYFS 2021 flags come from and why we've brought them in instead of having the assessment as it was. So as I'm sure you're all aware, there's a brand new EYFS framework, and along with that there's the new development matters and also the birth to 5 matters document, the guidance materials that have come out. So that's just sort of been a driving force, and alongside that there's been a sort of a real shift, move away from data collection, which it can overtake everything you're doing in early years. I've been there where you're obsessing with spreadsheets all the time and sort of just worrying about that. So the new reforms are really to try and move away from this sort of data centric approach and to put the focus back on the child. And that's where we came up with the flag system for Tapestry. And so you're no longer going to be ticking off statements. And we'll go through everything, what it looks like and everything for those who haven't had a chance to have a look yet. But so you're going to be looking at just flagging the areas. And to do that, you're going to need to turn on the EYFS 2021 flags. And the EYFS 2021 flags are built up from, you've got the areas from development matters. And for those of you who have looked at the new development matters document, you'll notice that there's no more aspects. So there's no aspects sort of built into development matters anymore. So you've just got your 7 areas. So they are the 7 areas that you see when you look into the EYFS 2021. And then on top of that, we've put in the aspects from birth to 5 matters within that. So we've combined the two. And the reason we've combined the two was because when we were sort of talking about this and everything, because they're just guidance materials and they're not documents or materials to be sort of assessed against. So, again, we're moving away from that assessment. We're moving away from thinking about every observation, oh, where are they, which age band and everything like that, because we're trying to move away from that. So we thought if people had the opportunity to use as much of the guidance material that is out there, fantastic, which is why when we were designing this, we came up with the idea to combine the two and put them all under the EYFS 2021 flags. Now, we've had some really good feedback about that, but I've also seen, and I think we've all seen, a lot of confusion because of that. Partly because people are expecting them to feed into the ELGs. I'm going to come into that later on, because the new development matters and the new birth to 5 do not feed into the early learning goals anymore. So the new early learning goals are not the same as the aspects from birth to 5 matters. And that is a deliberate sort of thinking by the authors of birth to 5 matters to try and stop is to create this break between what we're looking at for our development of our children and the end of reception assessment point. Okay, so it's just about focusing on the children throughout all the years, those 5 years, and then worrying about the ELGs at the end. So that's why they don't marry up. So that's what they are. And because we've heard that there's been a lot of confusion, we've had a lot of emails. So thank you if you've sent us emails about sort of asking us how it all works and everything. But I think what we're looking to do, and we're hopefully doing this as quickly as we can, we're going to look first of all to splitting the EYFS flags. So you'll be able to choose whether you're using development matters or birth to 5, or you can use both if you want. Okay, so that's going to still happen. That's not going anywhere. Okay, but if you want to just use one or the other, that's absolutely fine. Okay, but let's get down to actually how you enable them. So the first thing you need to do is be a manager on your account, because you're going to need to get into your control panel. And as always, just click on your name and go to control panel. And then you're going to go to settings and scroll down to flags. Now, before you used to go to assessments, we're going to come back to that in a minute. But for now, we're going to go to flags. And you can see here, we've got the bespoke flag sets. That's a new feature that we just brought where you can do create your own flags. And we've got the EYFS 2021 flags. Now, you can click enable all if you want, that's absolutely fine, but I'm just going to go through, if you click on the arrow to expand them. Here's the EYFS 2021 flags I was just talking about. And if I just view flags, you'll be able to see here that you've got your 7 areas in purple. And then these mustardy coloured ones, they are the birth to 5 matters aspects, okay? So you'll notice that in communication language, they are the same as the old ELGs. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused. But when you go down to PSED, you've got making relationships, sense of self, and understanding emotions, which you can see that they're not the same, okay? Physical development, you've got your moving, handling, health, and self-care. It's the same as the old ELGs. But again, they're not the same as the new ELGs. And under math, there are no aspects. And again, that's because in birth to 5, there are no aspects. So that's what you're looking at here. You've got your areas from your developed matters, and then you've got your birth to 5 aspects and areas as well. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. So if you want to enable them, you can just click on configure, enable them. You can decide whether you want to make them visible to relatives or not. And then reflections as well, enabled. I'm going to enable them because I'm going to come into, come back to that in a second. Okay, so they are now enabled, and you can see here they are enabled. I also want to just very quickly talk about these checkpoints. Okay, the checkpoints are only from development matters. So for those of you who have checked out the development matters document, you'll find that throughout birth to 3 and 3 to 4, and those age pathways, you've got little checkpoints. Okay, if I just click on the birth to 3, you'll see you've got communication language, PSED, and physical development. They are only for your prime areas. They don't go into the specifics. Okay, same for your 3 to 4. Same 3. Okay, they're just for your primes. And that's because they're not things to assess against. Okay, I was talking to someone on the Tapestry group the other day, and I said they're sort of just prompts that if you want to sort of just say, oh yeah, so this child is doing this at this, they're developing at a typical state, sort of rate, if you want. They're where a typical child of that age would be. And so that's what these checkpoints are. Personally, I don't think you need to be using them all the time. I think you only need to really be using them sort of at those sort of checkpoint times. That's why there's none for reception though, because they aren't written in the document. I spoke to one school and they were going to be using them as, so the checkpoints were going to be, and they were going to use the checkpoint flags, but only if a child wasn't meeting them, so that they then knew to focus on that. Okay, so that was an interesting way to do that. Now, I'm not going to enable these now, for now, don't need to. You've got your characteristics of effective teaching and learning. So again, you've just got your 3 characteristics there. And you've got your ELGs as well. And this is where you're going to see those ones that you're after if you're on the EYFS 2021 and you're confused. Self-regulation, you're managing self, they're all there. You've got your number and numerical patterns, everything there. So that's all there for you. I'm not going to enable them for now though, because I want to focus just on these EYFS 2021 flags. So they are enabled. And the way we're going to use them, we're just going to go and start a new observation as we do normally. Let me just see why it's not doing that now. Oh, that's why. See, I'm blinded by the being on the camera. Right, so yes, it. So we're going to start here. So as always, you choose your children. So whichever children you want to choose, chosen those 2. You must give it a title. As always on Tapestry, you always need to give a thing, select a child and give it a title. You can add your notes, your additional information if you want. You can add your media. And this is where you would have normally gone. You would have gone to your assessments. That's no longer needed. And you can see actually I've disabled the EYFS one on here. What you're looking for is your flags here. You'll also see you've got reference material over this side. But I'm just looking at my EYFS 2021 flags. You can see I've got other flags, and this is my testing account. So I'm sorry, I should have disabled these before I started, but not looking at these at the moment. Just going to focus on this purple EYFS 2021 flag. And this is where you can just tag or flag, sorry, the observation. So say you were doing an observation of a child sharing a book with another child. And you might think, okay, so we've got some PSED and we've got some literacy. That's all you need to do, okay? If you wanted to use the birth to 5 aspects, you could also select the reading and go into here. You could maybe say making relationships, okay? It's your choice. You don't have to, but if you want to go into those, you can. It's as simple as that. That's all you're doing. You don't need to do any more assessing. You don't need to worry about what's going on, which age band and all that. All you need to do is just know the area or the aspect that you want to tag. Okay. Over this side is the reference material. And you may have noticed that it jumped around as I was ticking them. And what it's doing is it's just bringing the areas that you've flagged and also the relevant sort of ranges or pathways, age pathways. This is just material to refer to though. Personally, I don't think this is going to be very useful when you're doing an observation. Okay, you don't need to be thinking about this when you're doing an observation. Use your time of doing an observation to be with that child. Use that time to help support that child. Give them feedback on what they're doing. Think about what their next steps could be and be the adult there and lead them. Okay, don't worry about this. The reference material does not appear on the apps. Okay, so on the apps, you'll just get to tick a flag. And like I said, I don't think when you're doing an observation, the reference material is going to be overly that useful. But if you did want to have a look at it, say I wanted to look at developed matters, literacy, reception, click on it, and you'll just get to see what developed matters, literacy, and the reception pathway, age pathway said. Okay, so it just gives you an idea of what a typical child in reception might be doing in literacy when they're in reception. Likewise for the birth to 5, so I go to the unique child, I'm going to go to range 6. And if I was going to literacy, reading, and again, I can just read what a typical child might be doing. Okay, that's all I need to be doing. When you're ready though, click off it. And you can see here that the flags that I selected before have appeared there. Okay, when you're ready, click save as always. It's not in the journal. It can stay in the journal, not in journal or whatever. I'm going to add it to journal, just why not? Okay, now that's all you've got to do for your day-to-day running of the of your sort of taking observations and everything. The other thing about observations, they don't have to be long, laborious, sort of heavily detailed observations. If you've taken a photo or a video and uploaded it to your observation and that says exactly what's going on, don't think that you need to put lots more detail explaining it. Okay, for a lot of the relatives, if they're looking, the main thing they want to see is their child. Okay, they might be interested in reading a few of the notes, but they're not interested in all of the notes usually. Okay, quite often anyway. So don't worry about making the observations long and laborious because they're just for you at the end of the day. They're just going to have to get they're just going to be sort of there to sort of remind you later on. And that time when it's going to be reminding you is when you come to do your areas of concern screen. Okay. Now, once you've enabled the EYFS 2021 flags, okay, you're going to go to tracking, you look for EYFS 2021, and then you're looking for your areas of concern screen. Now, we've had a few people message us about the use of the word concern, and I just wanted to share where that word came from. It's not that it's not saying that the child's a concern, if in a way. You're just saying, I just want to watch this child. Okay, so if we go to the group view, for instance, I can see here, so if I go down to Ben, for instance, I've already started to fill out here, and I can see that I've got a concern in communication and language. And what that says to me and to the staff in the team is that maybe our provision that we've got planned for Ben at the moment isn't quite working. That says to me that what I've put in place, maybe he's struggling to access. And so by flagging it as a concern, all I'm saying is to myself and to all the other staff, this child, we need to think about how we're going about things. We need to think about what are we putting in place for this child, what's working, what's not working, and then we adapt our planning and our provision for that child. Okay. If there are no concern, that means the provision that you've put in place for them, your planning, the support you've got in for them, they're accessing it all fine, as you would expect, and they're not a concern to you. And that is where majority of your children are going to be for the majority of your year. Okay, most children are going to be a no concern for your whole year, because the planning and the provision that you provide for them is matching their development, because you know the children. But we also know that there are some children who need that extra support, and that's where the concerns comes in. You've also got review, and review is the review section is just when you're not sure. You might want to just talk to the other people, your other staff. You might want to do a few more observations. You may just want to watch the child a little bit more, just to sort of monitor before you make a decision. Once you're happy, you can go to no concerns. I've just seen a question. Will it be on YouTube as a recording after this session? Yes, it will be on YouTube after. Probably won't be straight away because I've got to wait for Zoom to sort of download it, and then we have to sort of work on magic. But very soon, possibly before the end of the week, it will be on YouTube for you. It will definitely be on Facebook straight away though. Okay, so I'll just answer that question. Right. So that's all you have to do here for this concerns. It's literally just going to be, okay, so in communication language, I've not got any concerns about Ben. In these, no, okay, I just need to think a bit more about Ben for literacy and math and understand the word there. If I need to do some thinking about it or some more talk, that's when we talk about reflections. Okay, so reflections. Before I move on, this screen, this areas of concern screen is not viewable by relatives. Okay, so relatives will never see your areas of concern screen, and they will never see your reflections. Okay, so these are areas just for staff, and that's because they're not so much about the child themselves. It's about what you're putting in place for your planning for them. Okay, and there might come a time when you raise a concern for a child, but actually it's not something you need to worry the relative about, because it's just you just think, oh, we just need a little bit more. Maybe we're having a conversation about something, we just need to talk about it a bit more. We can maybe start a reflection on that or a concern. So that's why these are not visible to your relatives. But going back to your reflections, you can see here, Ben's got a reflection, and I didn't look where it was. So it was in physical development, and it says pencil grip. So I can click on it to have a look at it. Hopefully you can still see that. So it says Ben struggled with holding a pencil comfortably. I've modeled used pegs to help strengthen, and I've linked other observations to this. Randomly I've logged reading the book, but yeah, that's fine. But what you can do is the rest of the staff can then add comments or add media and things like that. So they might think, okay, so I tried this with another child, maybe you want to try this with Ben, or maybe another adult has worked with Ben and said, okay, yeah, so I did this with Ben and it worked really, really well. Okay, and it's building up that picture. Now, this page might not be useful to you at all. Okay, this page might be actually done through conversations that you have within your team every day, throughout the day, whenever. Okay, so don't feel like you have to use a reflection, but they are there because we know how busy everyone is, and you don't always get that chance to have a chat with each other, or it's hard to remember what you've tried especially for something like the pencil grip, it might be something that takes a bit of time. So you could start to record all the things that you've tried so that you're sort of having a record of what you've tried for them. Okay. If you wanted to start a new reflection, you just click on add a reflection. And when you're doing it from the areas of concern screen, it instantly tags the child that it was already on. So it's Ben's. And it also includes the area or the aspect that it was included in. Okay, so this one was in physical development, so it includes that. If you want to add another one, that's absolutely fine. So if you wanted to really focus on moving and handling, that's fine. You can do that as well. Okay, so you can add to this, but by doing it through your areas of concern screen, those ones are automatically added, which means that it brings it in straight away for you. Okay, again, you just need a title. So I'm really going to struggle now. So let's do a letter formation. And I noticed that Ben struggled to form circular. Been out of the classroom for too long to remember exactly what. Okay, so I can mark it ready for discussion. You can either decide to have it just for yourself and other managers, or you can do it for yourself and all staff. Chances are, if you're doing it as a reflection for the children, chances are you'll want to do it for all staff, but that's up to you. You can link your observations as well. So again, it's if I just wanted to look at Ben's ones, I can here. I can choose them. So if I think, oh, this one might be a good one to link to it, and it's there. And it just pulls it all together. Okay, and then I can save my reflection. Afterwards, I can also talk about my impact. So if it's had a really good impact, if I've managed to sort of help Ben with his pencil grip, if that's what I'm doing, or in this one, if it's letter formation, once I've tried everything, I can really do the impact and say, this is what worked for Ben. And what that does is it helps gives you a record of what you tried with Ben, so that if later on Ben's struggling with other things, you've still got it as a record. You can go back and try again. Or if you've got other children who are similar, you can say, oh, I know that Ben had that. Let's try it with this child here as well. Okay. So I then go back to my areas of concern screen. And now you can see it's updated. I've got 2 reflections. Okay. Got a question coming in. So the questions that I'm answering, they're ones that are coming in. If you're asking a question that the team know that I'm going to be covering shortly, that's why you might not get an answer straight away or directly to yours, but that's why this one come in. But it's the characteristics of learning. Are they still important? Yes, they are still important. They're still in the framework, the statutory framework. It's about how you use them. And again, they're not things to assess against. They're more for your supporting and to sort of keep an eye on everything like that. Okay, so definitely still using them, and you can use them as you can flag them as well. Going back to your flags, there's in the EYFS 2021 flags set, there was an actual characteristics of effective teaching and learning flag set. Okay, so that's that one. So one thing you can do here as well, at the top of the areas of concern screen in the group view, you can very quickly see which areas you've got the most concerns or which areas you've got concerns in. So for instance, I can have a look here and I can see I've got 14 children, 4 of them are concerns, 9 and no concerns, and 1 is a review. If I wanted to have a look at who my 4 concerned children are, because I'm doing my planning at the moment, I'm thinking about my maths, why have these children been flagged as concerns? So I just click on that and I can see I've got Jamie, Malaya, Poppy and Tomash, and those 4 children are my concerns. I'd be able to see the reflections, I'd be able to see the observations they've got, because this is my testing account. I haven't got that data in there that I can just sort of use, but obviously your data is going to be filling this up and it's going to have the relevant information that you need. Okay, at the bottom as well, you've got your reference material, so it's for maths because this is for that. So just this is where your reference material is going to be useful, because actually you can see what a typical child is, And if you've got a child who is maybe or this group, they're struggling to count beyond 10, you could put something in to support them for that. Okay, and it just gives you those ideas. Okay, and if you click on more, you've got your birth to 5 as well, and it all jumps around and everything like that. I'm just going to reset that. The other thing you can do is guided view in here. So that's where you go to guided view up here, or from your tracking EYFS 2021 guided view. It takes you to exactly the same things. Yes, I'll be coming to reports and the 2-year check very shortly. Okay, so with these, you've got your guided review. Now this shows ones that I've created previously in the last 30 days. Okay, anything it says here, they're available for 30 days after their recent access. Doesn't mean that after 30 days it all gets deleted. It just means that your most recent review sessions aren't going to be shown here, but the things that you've changed in them is still valid and it's not going to disappear and all that. But I'm just going to start a new session. I'm going to stick with Ben, and you can choose multiple children. And I'm just going to do my literacy and maths for that child. And it just basically asks you, how do you feel about Ben's progress in literacy? And here it pulls up all your observations for the child. And down here, it shows you all the reflections, and you've also got your reference material. And you can look at that. This is going to be really useful for a pupil progress meeting. I can see this being a really good focus point for you. And you'll be able to talk about the child. You'll be able to say, this is what we've tried. This is what I've seen. This is why we've tried this stuff. It didn't work. It did work, whatever. And then once you're happy with all that, you can then make a judgment. If you click on no concerns, I'm going to do that. It takes you to the next area. Okay, so the next area that you've chosen to look at. So in this one, I've chosen to look at maths. If having reviewed everything, had your thought, conversations, everything, you want to then change it to a concern or review. If I change it to concerns this time, it just instantly asks me, would you like to open a new reflection about this? And then I can say yes. And if I do that, it opens up a new reflection. And once again, it's got the child that I'm looking at and the flag for the area that it was looking at. Okay, I'm not going to carry on with that one though for now. And then it just moves on to the next area. Because that's the last of the areas that I was interested in, it's now gone to my review page. So this just shows you what I've just done. So if I've made a mistake, I was like, I wasn't supposed to do that, I can correct it here as well. What you can also do, I'm just going to go back to looking at all children. You've got a timeline. So I'm just going to stick to Ben on here. And what you can see here, all children will start as a no concern when they start, when you first enable this, okay? And then once you started a review, then you can sort of see what's happened. So I can see on the 6th of May, I recorded that Ben was a concern. And then on the 8th of June, it says I was unable, so I'm review. And then on the 9th of September, I was happy, okay? So it just shows you the journey of that child, okay? And what that's going to give you is the opportunity to see if you've got a child who's sort of a bumpy child, so they're going constantly between concern, no concern, and that might highlight to you that actually I need to think a bit more about the support that I put in place. Maybe they're not ready for me to sort of remove that support from them just yet. Okay, so that's the timeline, and you can also export that. You can export it as a PDF or as an Excel CSV as well. You can also do it for all the areas here. So you've got, and it just shows you here. So all the changes that you make. So every time you click on one, so if I go back, because I changed the PD one, I probably won't do it today actually. If I do this one there. So you can see on the 30th of June, Lauren said that Ben was a no concern. And today I've also said it's a no concern. And it's showing that both times it's been clicked. So for those of you who are worried that it's not showing that you've considered the child's progress or anything like that, the child's development, it's all there. It's there for you to sort of say, look, I have considered it. This is when I've considered it, and everything like that. One of the things that a lot of people have been saying is, how do I show progress? And that comes from, you know, for years we've been used to tracking children. They start with us at one age band, maybe we're using refinements as well, and sort of we progress through the ladder, you know, and that's what we call our progress, and that's what we're happy about and everything like that. What this does, it doesn't give you that data anymore, but actually, does it need to? First of all, Develop Matters and Birth to 5 are not assessment documents. They are your provision guidance documents. Okay, so they are what guides your provision and helps you support the children's development. So assessing against them actually isn't going to work anymore. So that's why you can't tick statements, because what statements would we put? We can't put statements that are from Develop Matters because it hasn't, the document hasn't been created that way. The last document, the last Develop Matters, on every page it said not to be used as a tick list, and we all did. You know, Tapestry let it happen as well, and even those who weren't using Tapestry were used, like having tick lists and everything. I know that I had stuff come from nurseries where it would be paper sheets where it was highlighted and everything like that, and it's just that kind of, we've got to move away from that. We've just got to sort of focus more about what we're putting in place for the children. What is our provision and how is that going to support their development? So you're not going to be seeing those documents where you're ticking off statements. And I hope that people aren't creating more work for themselves, because nobody's asking for that. I know Helen had a really good conversation with Ofsted, and she got them to say that they're not going to be coming in for to look at your data. And it's on record, it's on our YouTube channel. Have a look at the video. Helen talks with Ofsted. They say it there. They're not going to come in and look for that data. What they're going to come in and look at is what you're doing for those children. How are you monitoring your children? And that's what this system does. It allows you to monitor your children against your provision. Okay. When you come to do your planning, you can see those children that need that support, and you adapt your planning for those children. Say, for instance, Anna here, I can see it's PSED, and the concern might be, okay, really not good at sharing things. Okay, so I put things in place for Anna, and I adapt Anna's provision in my planning documents. You're doing your planning anyway. That's part of what you do every day. When Anna is then accessing those new provisions that you put in place, maybe it's when you want Anna to share things, you support and model. If Anna is then accessing it and sort of figuring out, actually, this is what I need to do, that's when you change them to a no concern. Okay. Likewise for children, who are possibly with learning differences, or even children who are sort of high ability children, you're going to be looking at the provision that you put in place for them. Okay, so for a child with learning differences, you might have a specific provision that you're putting in place for them, and if they're accessing that and your provision is supporting their development, that's great. They are a no concern. Okay, this is not an on track, not on track kind of screen. This is how are they accessing your provision kind of screen. This is what do I need to do to support those children's kind of screen. And that's what I want you to really understand from this session, is that this page is to support the children in accessing what you want them to access. So what I would say is, if you've got a child with learning differences, you need to make sure that you're comparing this to the provision that you've put in place. So I'm going back to when I was a teacher, we might have had a separate box where we put what we're doing for specific children. Okay. And if they were accessing those things that I was doing for those specific children, I'm quite happy to leave them as a no concern. It doesn't matter if they're not going to reach the ELG at the end of my reception year. That's not what this is about. This is about the child's actual development. And like I said earlier on, most of the children, if you meet their development, they will reach the ELGs. Okay. So that's where you've got to really consider what this screen is used for. Just had a question come in. Why the development matters headings not changed, the new headings? Okay, I'm going to go at one more time. They're not from the new ELGs. Okay, they are from the birth to 5 aspects. Okay, at the end of this, go back, watch. I think we covered it in the first 5 minutes. Okay, right. Next thing. So yeah, that's about the importance of monitoring and assessing against our own provision and not using the guidance materials for this, and how to use this. We've also got a video. There's a webinar that myself and Stephen recorded a few months ago about how to use this and other areas. We talked about children with learning differences in SEND and Cherry Garden and all this lot. There's also a video of myself and Jack where it's a shorter one, how to use this and how it might be used in there. So do check them out on our YouTube channel as well. The other thing that's particularly important at the moment is baseline. Baseline at the moment, you know, we've got the RBA, but that's not going to support the children in your setting coming up, okay, for the next year or whatever. Okay, if you're in reception, you've also got children who are starting nursery for the first time. You'd want to baseline them. And before, we would have used the age bands and thought, right, so this is where they are and this is where. Again, you know your children. You know where they are when they start. Okay, you know what a typical child who starts with you at that age will be showing. And what I would advise you to do is just create a document. It doesn't have to be pages and pages and pages. It's just got to be a few things that you're looking for. And over their first few weeks of settling in with you, just observe them. Are they doing those things that you expect a typical child at that age to be doing when they join your setting? Okay. If not, and after a few weeks and a few things of you sort of trying to support them and everything, if they're still not doing it, you've got, you could record them as a concern and then start a reflection and sort of put it into place like that. Okay. So I'm just really pointing out that I cannot read and talk at the same time. Really sorry. I cannot do two things at once. So yeah, so if you're baselining a child, just have a document that you're coming up with that fits your settings needs. And then after a few weeks of them settling in, showing you what they are capable of, and you comparing them against that document, any that might need a little bit more support, that's when you could maybe put them as a concern. Or if you're not really worried about it being a concern, a review maybe, and you could start a reflection as well. Okay, so that's how I would see baseline happening on this screen. Okay. Tracking children, I've said, we're not going to be tracking them through age bands, but for those of you who want to see that progress, what you're going to see is the children who are recorded as no concerns, okay, they are making progress, okay? So a child could start with you on day 1 and finish with you 3 years later as a no concern the whole time. They are progressing as you would expect. Your provision has matched their development. So what you've put in place has really supported that child, which is fantastic. And it's really helping support them. And you've put them in as a no concern all the way through. And that is your progress. So for those of you who are saying, oh, my SLT or my management want to be able to see the progress data, you've got your planning. Okay. You've got your planning and you've got this sheet. This sheet here, you can show that most of your children or this group of children or whatever, they've been a no concern. And so they are progressing the whole way through. And that's what you really want to be seeing. Okay. Those children as well, who maybe were a concern, You can have your pupil progress meeting. You can talk about what you've put in place for them. You can do all that kind of thing. And that group of concerns, if you want, those children who are in the concerns group, if your provision now matches their developmental needs, and you've got that right through your conversations, through your reflections, through your observations, if that all matches everything, then that's great. They become a no concern, and that concerns group gets smaller. And that again is your progress. Okay, so when people say, oh, I need to show progress, your progress is your provision, your planning, and what you've put in place for them, and the children who are no concerns. Okay, like I said earlier, a child could be a no concern the whole time with you and not make ELG if at the end of reception, if you're a reception teacher, that's fine, as long as you have met that child's development. Okay, as long as you're really sort of ensuring that you're pushing them, making sure that you're supporting them where they need that support, so there's no gaps in their development forming. I did talk very quickly about the children with learning differences. There is the Cherry Garden and the SEND frameworks as well. Please do check them out. There's some great videos again on our YouTube channel as well. The other question that's come up a lot is about the apps and how you're not seeing the flags appear on the apps once you have downloaded it. And the reason they're not coming up on the app is for two reasons. The first, you haven't updated your app. Okay, so you need to make sure from your app store you've got the latest version of your app. Secondly, you're using the Classic app. Okay, there are two Tapestry apps. You've got the Tapestry Classic, which hasn't been updated for a few years. Okay, so it's probably best to look at the Tapestry mobile app anyway. But the Tapestry mobile app is the only one that's being updated, and it's the only one that you're going to see the flags. So you need to make sure that you're using that. The other thing to note with the flags, the apps that I mentioned earlier, there are no reference materials going to come up. But again, you don't really need that reference material when you're doing an observation. Use your time that you're doing that observation to support the child instead of worrying about developed matters or birth to 5 or any other guidance materials that you've got. Use that time with that child to really focus on what they're doing and what can you do as the adult. I've had a great chat with Julie Fisher about over a year ago now about the transition into year 1, and she talked about that observing children, and she mentioned the thing about the 3 W's, the wait, watch and wonder. And it's sort of wait, don't just jump in with your observation, wonder, sort of watch what they're doing, and then wonder, will I make an impact if I talk to them, if I go in and everything like this? Okay, so use your observation time to do that and support the children exactly when you need to do it. Okay, that's what I would say is really important. I did also mention, for those of you who no longer want to see the old EYFS frameworks, and what you'll need to do is go back to your control panel. Okay, so you go to your control panel and settings, and this time you're going to go down to assessments, and mine's already not enabled. If I just show you what it would look like if it was enabled. So there it is there. You can see here as well, we put this, looking for EYFS 2021, this can be flagged on the flag settings. You can click there. But to disable it, you're literally just going to click on configure and just disable it. Now, any observations that have had EYFS assessments done to them previously, the observations are still going to be visible. They're not going anywhere. They'll still be there for everyone to see. The only thing that's going to be hidden is the assessment part of that page, and also your tracking page. So all your summative assessments and everything like that, that's gone from up here once you disable it. Okay, if I just quickly enable it again, just to show you, for those of you who've forgotten already what it looks like, so it's there. So you've got all these pages here. Okay, once you disable it, that's gone. Okay, so that's why I just wanted to show you that, because if you want to get that data back at a later date, all you have to do is re-enable it and everything comes back. You're not deleting anything, you're just hiding it. Okay, so these are just like, if you want, they're like filters for that assessment. So you won't be able to add it or anything while it's disabled or not enabled. And then once you enable it, it all comes back again. So your summative assessments and everything. So if you've added something and then you're like, oh no, I need to get that back, or I forgot to download that, just enable it again, it all comes back. Okay. And I've come to the end of the questions that we were sent in. And I'm just going to check, just going to have a very quick look at the Q&As. I know that okay. There's a really good one. When do staff decide on a concern or no concern? How often? Okay. Now, I'm going to say there is no fixed amount of times that you have to do the areas of concern. Okay. That's, you know, the areas of concern screen is completely up to you how much you use it. There's no right way or wrong way. It has to be what works for you and what is going to support that child in their development. Okay, so it's hard for me to say, oh, you need to do it every week or every month or once a term or anything like that. It's completely up to you on how much you want to do that. Because I think if I was still in the classroom, I think I would probably use it more regularly because I needed those memory jogs, okay, which is what my observations are. Okay, they are just my memory jogs. They're just to help me think about what I've seen when I come to think about that child's development. So what I really want is for people to think, how is that page going to be useful for me? And like I said, reflections might not be useful for you, but if you want that place to record what you've tried for that child and everything, that's when you're going to be using it. Okay, right. I think I'm just going to ask the others on the questions if there's anything more to go. But I think I've covered everything that I was going to cover. But whilst I'm just waiting, I just wanted to say a massive, massive thank you to everyone at Tapestry who has helped me tonight. So Anya, Helen, Jack, Jules, Stephen, Alara as well for doing all the social stuff and everything like that. Okay, so yeah, so I just wanted to thank them for making sure this all goes smoothly tonight. Oh, we've got one question coming in. Should we not be using the assessment tab anymore, just flags? So again, the assessment flags, the assessment tab, this section here, where you would get all the summative assessment. If you want to carry on using it, go ahead. You know, this is all non-statutory. Okay, so there's non-statutory stuff is all there to support the development of the children. Okay, you can choose what you want to use. If you wanted to carry on using the previous version, Develop Matters, leave it enabled, keep using it. However, the assessment part won't be updated with the new Develop Matters. It won't be updated with Birth to 5, and it won't. So don't look for it there. One thing you can use the assessment tag for is for ELGs 2021, and these are. I'm just going to very quickly show you on this one. So I'm just going to go down to it. So it's here. And this is where you can tick the statements for your ELGs. Okay. So you go through. This is where you see, this is where you're getting your gross motor skills and fine motor skills, your comprehension, word reading, writing. That's, the ELGs. But remember, these are just end of reception sort of assessment points. They're not really to be used throughout the whole of the reception year, and certainly not before the reception year. But if you did want to use this, instead, I would recommend using the ELG 2021 assessment rather than the ELG 2021 flags personally. And Because you can sort of tick off statements, and you can also say whether they're emerging or expected. Okay, as was on the old one, that's for the whole thing though. So if you're saying expected, you're saying it's expected for comprehension, not expected for demonstrate understanding of what that. Okay, so yeah, do that. And the reason I say to use the assessment for ELG 2021, okay, rather than the flags, is because if I go to my tracking ELG 2021, I can get my EYFSP. So my profile for the end of reception, I can then choose a child. So let's stick with Ben, do you know why not? And I can go through and create my thing here. And I can, or if I've done observations using those assessments, it auto fills it like it used to on the old EYFS. Okay, so that's why I'm thinking this one would be quite useful. And then if I go to the group view one, obviously I haven't got any, so it's hard to show you any there. And then it also show you your GLDs. So it will show you any that have got that. Okay, so that's that. Oh yes, sorry, reports. Yes, before I go, reports. Well done. Phew. I said I was going to come. I did actually write that down as well. So reports. Now, a lot of people have been asking about the 2-year checks. Okay, when you turn off the EYFS assessments, you lose your 2-year check report here. Now, the reason you lose that is because under the new framework, the 2-year check actually is just a narrative of the prime areas. So that's where the EYFS 2021 report will actually work. Okay, so if I go for Jamie here, and what I could do is just call it my 2-year check. Okay, and just call my report the 2-year check. I've got all my data, and as with all the other reports, I can hide anything I don't want to show. So if I didn't want all this section, I can hide that. And then what you'll see is you've got the areas, a place to put your notes, and place to put next steps. Okay. That is all you've got for each area. And if you don't want to put next steps down, you can hide it. Okay. Nothing is going to autofill though anymore. The reason it's not autofilling is because it's got nothing to autofill against. Before, it would autofill against development matters. Okay, and what you had selected, it would sort of then think, okay, so well, that hasn't been selected, so the next step is this. But we're not assessing against development matters. We're not assessing against birth to 5 anymore. So that's why there's no more autofill. So your next steps are going to be based on what you know about your child. Okay, it's going to come from your provision. You know what you've put in place for that child. You know what that child needs to do next. And you've got all your observations. You can have several tabs open at once. So if you wanted to think about that, so if I wanted to go, if I was thinking about Jamie, there it is. So I can have a look at Jamie's overview. I can look at his observations. And I can just put it all out and everything like that. I can put it all together and everything like that. And then I can write my report. Now for a 2-year check, I'm going to need my communication language, my PSED, my physical development, but I'm not going to need all the rest. So all I have to do is just click on hide section for those bits. Okay. I can put a child voice in, or if I don't want to, I can put the relative contribution. When the relative then looks at it and sort of edits it, they can put a comment, and you can sign it as well. So you can do your signs there. Okay. And then once you're happy, you save it. Okay. It's a draft at the moment. Once I'm ready, I'm going to publish it, and then that can be seen by the relatives. Okay. And that's my report. Actually, if I just do just a very quick edit, so I'm just going to put some comments. My best typing for those errors. Yeah. Okay. And I'm just going to save it again. Okay. Now when I export it, I can choose what I want. Okay, I'm going to export it and I'm going to open it. Hopefully you can see that. And it just shows you what you've just done for that. And that's what it looks like. Or it can be looked online as well. Okay, so I think that is it. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, please do email customer.service@eyfs.info. We will get back to you as quickly as we can. September is our busy period, so it might take a little bit longer, but we're all hands on deck answering them at the moment for you. This session is going to be available straight away on YouTube, on Facebook, and as quickly as possible on YouTube. So please do share it with your colleagues or anyone else that you think might benefit from watching this as well. Hopefully I've answered your questions as best I can, but please do get back to us if you need anything. Okay, so thank you very much for your time tonight. Just under an hour, which I'm very pleased with.